Greetings Terrarians, Khaios here. Today we're going to look at some micro house builds. So all of these are going to be incredibly tiny. There's going to be 3 designs in total, and the key thing to these micro houses is that they are going to be valid NPC houses. Now when I say micro houses, I mean that I'm going to make the house look as small as possible, and it's going to actually look smaller than what should be considered a valid NPC house, but then I'm going to show you a way to make it to where you can not only decorate the place to make it look good, but also make it a valid NPC house for all of your town NPCs. So we have here a little slice of hell that I set up just to kind of give a theme to the area. And anyone who's been following me for a while has seen these little cages, these gibbets that I build that I sometimes store NPCs in. I have 2 versions of them. One is a non-NPC house that I tend to put NPCs inside of using T-Edit. And the other one is a NPC friendly, a valid NPC house. And if you've seen my posts on the Terraria community forums, then you'll know that I've shown you guys how to make these valid houses, but I thought I'd go ahead and expand on that today in this video. So we're gonna start off with some chain, and I'm just gonna drop 13 of them down here. So that's 4 just right to there. Actually, I'm gonna raise that up 1, put that there, and remove this one here. At the bottom of that, I'm going to place a tin plating block, and then to the side of that, with some gray paint, I'm gonna place a little bit of copper plating, just like this. And then directly beneath that, we're going to place some spikes. And then a row of copper plating beneath the spikes. And then a row of blue dungeon platforms, just because I like the way they look at the bottom of this. Then we're going to slope the corners of the copper plating so that it connects to the spikes like this here. And then we're also going to slope those 2 segments here. And I'm actually going to bust that out, and I'm going to lower this tin plating 1 and add another chain back in. I made this a little lower than I meant to, but that's okay. We'll just put that there for now. And then we're going to grab some lead fence. Now it's very important that you use, in this instance, lead fence rather than iron fence, because lead fence will still work as a back wall for a valid NPC house, while iron fence does not. So make sure that you're using that lead fence to get the cage look. And then these 2 gaps that I left here, I'm going to just put some copper plating wall with some gray paint right there. So now you see we have a functioning gibbet, but it is not a valid house. It's too small. So the way we get around that is we add a row of shelves to either side of this chain. In this case, I'm going to use brass shelves, just because they're really thin and they don't stand out nearly as much as other platforms or shelves might. And I'm just going to hammer them to kind of give them a spiky look, just to kind of add to the spiky feel of the gibbet in general. Next, I'm going to put an actuator on this tin plating right here and actuate it, and I'm actually going to repaint it to white like that so that it more closely resembles the copper plating right next to it. And then, as you see, this is now a gap, and this is the main part of the room. And now that this block is actuated, this is also considered part of the house. All of these tiles, all the way up to here, are considered part of the interior, even though it doesn't look like it. And in fact, the shelf that we placed on the edges, not only does it act like a wall to include this as the interior, but it also counts as our door for validating the house. So we have our door requirement done, and our size requirement is pretty close to done. I'm just going to expand this out a little bit, and I'll explain why in just a moment. But we're going to want these out like this, and then I'm going to grab some blue dungeon brick wall and just place it behind it right here. And that's just going to kind of give a little bit of a brick aesthetic to the build. Might make it pop out a little bit over the edges here to make it look like it's set into the sandstone. Something like that. So we also need background walls behind this chain in order for it to be considered part of the background walls for the interior of the house. Right now we'll be missing too many walls, so I'm going to switch to white paint and grab more lead fence, and I'm just going to line the chain with some of that lead fence painted white, just like that. It hides behind the chain pretty well. It doesn't add to it. Say if I were to use this brick, it comes out to the sides and it makes the chain look even bulkier, which is not what I'm after. So I'm just going to switch to that for the moment. And now you'll see if we check the housing here, it's now technically a valid house. It's just missing a light source, a table, and a chair. For the chair, we're gonna grab some black paint and we're gonna grab a dynasty chair and we're just going to place it in the corner right there. It's something you could see, but when the NPCs moved in, it's not going to be nearly as obvious, and it's something that most people won't even notice. For the light source, we're going to keep on black paint, and we're going to grab a torch and just place it right there on top of the chain. And I'm just going to grab a switch, and we're going to turn this torch off so it's not actually producing a flame. And now we have a perfectly hidden light source right in here. So we have our light requirement complete, and now we just need our tables. So I'm going to grab some gray paint and 2 Gothic workbenches. The only reason I'm grabbing 2 is so that it's a symmetrical design, and these are going to look like they're kind of holding the cage in place up here. So now that we have all of those in place, we check this, and it is now a suitable house. So an NPC will move in here eventually, or I can go ahead and place an NPC in here if I want to. The only place for them to stand will be at the bottom of this cage. So whenever it's nighttime, or if it's rain or an event or something like that, the arms dealer will move into this cage and just be standing down here, unable to leave. Since these are platforms, they're not going to impede you from passing by the gibbet if you wish. So there we have our first micro house done. With the second micro house design, I wanted to show you a different way that you could take a tiny house that's invalid due to its size and kind of expand it to make it a valid house without really ruining the overall design. So what we're going to be building here is kind of a miniature dungeon. And I'm just going to start off by grabbing some blue dungeon brick and making a false foundation using it. The reason why I'm using blue dungeon brick is just because it's my favorite of the dungeon brick colors. I just really like the way that it looks. Now, a very important detail to this design of house is that there has to be a block firmly placed against the foundation layer. So I have this grass block directly against the end. It wouldn't work if I had it like this, where it was hovering and not touching directly. So it's very important that this is closed off. And I'm also using gray paint for this dungeon brick layer here, just so that it makes the false foundation a little bit better. So I'm going to grab some white paint and some blue dungeon brick wall, and I'm just going to place it in the false foundation layer. Just like that, so that it kind of matches the brick above it with in terms of the color. And I'm just going to grab some more of the various blue dungeon bricks, the tile and slabbed versions to be specific, and just blend them around for a little bit more texture to the build. Next, switching back to some gray paint, I'm going to shape the actual dungeon itself. I don't want the walls to be too thick, as this is going to be a micro house, so I'm just going to make them too thick on the sides, and the ceiling is going to be at your head level. I need to have enough space to place a workbench and to place a chair, and I need enough space for the NPC to stand on one empty tile, so I'll place that there, and then a space after that for the door. And I'm going with the iconic wooden dungeon door. I just love the way that door looks. And then I'm actually going to expand this house out just a little bit more, because I want it to actually look somewhat like a dungeon. So to get that look, I'm going to expand the house out to there, and then add a row on top, and then right above the doorway I will add another row right here. And just to get the kind of dungeon look, I'll hammer those down. I'll hammer that down, remove that brick, hammer those, remove that brick, hammer that one, and I'll just hammer this one on the end over here as well. With some white paint and actuators and palladium column, I can go ahead and place the pillars that you see iconic outside of the Terraria dungeons. And once you push those into the background, they will match the design much better. The reason why I'm going with the palladium column rather than a wall or a fence is because they're super thin, which helps bring in the feel of this micro build a little bit more. A little bit extra detail can be added to the roofing part right here with some gray paint and some rich mahogany wall, just to give it a little bit more of a shorter ceiling feel to it. On the inside, I'm going to do another blend of gray painted dungeon brick wall and the blue brick wall, as well as the slab wall and the tiled wall. And if you really want to, and I'm actually going to just go ahead and do it, you can add a tiny little window to this dungeon with some lead fence. I feel that it really kind of pulls the build together a little bit more. And then for the light source, I'm going to use this skull lantern. So now we have a table, a chair, and a light source, a door, but you'll see that the house is too small. Again, these are micro builds. So how we get around that is extremely simple. We grab some white paint and we remove this block right there, just right in that corner. And what that does is it opens up the house to include the false foundation as part of the house. And using the white paint, we grab some blue dungeon brick wall and place it right in there. I actually didn't have my paint sprayer on. There we go. Which blends that hole that we just made into the wall, so it's pretty much unnoticeable. But now we have this large area down here, increasing the size of our house and making it suitable. Now, one problem with using a false foundation to expand the size of a micro build like this is that your NPCs can sometimes end up standing in the false foundation rather than inside of the house. So to kind of fix that issue, just place some gray painted blue dungeon bricks anywhere that we have kind of the low or the high ceiling, anywhere that it's 3 blocks tall, just like this. And now you can't even tell that these are here really, but we have a layer of brick right here. I'll just remove that one in case it makes the house too small. but they're too short for the NPCs to stand in this area. So they'll no longer attempt to stand here, and they'll only stand inside of the house. And again, we still have a suitable house. I can move any NPC that I want into the house. The third micro house design that I'm going to be showing you guys today is a tree-based design. Rather than having the extended house be in the foundation or within the support, I'm going to be hiding the foundation within a tree. So what I'm going to start off by doing is just building kind of a bulb-shaped tree. And the reason why I'm going with a bulb shape is because I want to fit the micro house at the very, very base of the tree. So I do need enough room to have a workbench and a chair and a light source. And I'll also need to have space for a door. I'm actually going to scooch these over just one. I like these rocks here, so I'm going to leave those there. And we'll have the door right here. And we're just going to go with the usual wooden door. So now the NPC has a place to stand. We have all of our basic furniture requirements for the micro house done. And I'm just going to time-lapse me building the tree real quick. And for the interior of the house, I'm just going to stick with some living leaf wall, but I'm going to paint it brown. I just feel that it has a better texture for this sort of thing than the living wood wall does. I'm not a huge fan of the hard lines that you get from the wood, whereas with the leaf, it just kind of gives a more smooth blend of texture. And I'm going to kind of continue the bulb shape on this side over to the other side using the leaf, just like that. Maybe not that far out. There we go. So now we have our miniature house done, but you can see that the room, again, is too small. So the way that we deal with that issue in this circumstance is kind of a little different. So we're going to grab some glass, and what we're going to do is just punch a hole in the wood right here, and there, and we'll just kind of move off to the angle right here, just so that we don't actually encounter the outside edge of the house, like that. And I'll probably put one here and one there as well. And in those spots, I'm going to place these glass blocks so that it blends in with the wood, just like that. So now we have this nice line, and you can see that the only points where it intersects with the outdoors to kind of include them as part of the house is right here and right here. Now these blocks are solid, so we're going to grab our actuation rod and just push this glass into the background like that. And now what we need is a block or wall with a texture similar enough to the wood, and luckily we have just the thing. We're gonna grab some marble wall with brown paint and place it behind any of the glass blocks, and you'll see that we end up with a texture that looks pretty darn close to the unactuated living wood. In fact, if you didn't know to look, you probably wouldn't notice this at all. I'm not 100% sure that this house will be to size. I might need to increase this a little bit or change the wood. But since these glass blocks are actuated, these segments are now included part of the indoors. And let's see if it's big enough yet. It is. We now have a suitable house, and I could take an NPC and move them in. I'm just going to throw around a couple of decorations while I'm on the topic of this tree, just because, I don't know, I just feel like it. I have the materials, and the candelabra inside of the house is kind of made out of apples, and I just wanted to make this an apple tree. So I'm going to grab some red paint and some pumpkin blocks and just place them within the tree like this. Again, this is just a little bit of extra design that I felt like adding because why not? Even though the house is technically valid already. So they're pretty dark right now. So what we need to do is shape the blocks to add a little bit more light to the area. A half block is not going to make it quite bright enough for my taste. So you do have to go down to one of the slope shapes. And I try not to repeat a shape too often, just so we don't see a huge pattern anywhere. And once we have all the apples brightened up just like that, we're going to grab some living leaf wall and place it behind each apple. And then a couple around where we placed the slopes as well, just to kind of hide the slopes, but not directly on them so that we don't cover up their light. And there we have 3 micro house designs of different varieties to just kind of give you a look at how you might do something like this yourself. If you found the build tip video helpful, please be sure to leave a like and leave a comment letting me know what kind of micro builds you'd like to see me do in the future, because I do plan on doing more of these sort of things. If you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing to my channel. I'll catch you all later. Happy building!